Peter, thanks for coming on again, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I can't remember the last time we spoke. Um, I'm not sure if you just finished your contest season or you were in the middle of it or towards the end of it. Do you
Yeah,
remember?
I was really, really lean. I remember that. I
Yeah,
remember
yeah,
that.
yeah. You were. That's what I'm saying. Because when we first jumped on here before we hit record, I was saying you look a lot younger. I noticed the same thing with Eric Helms because I competed with him in July of well, it's 2019 now at this stage, but I hadn't seen him I hadn't seen him until November because I stayed with him then in November at the WNBF Worlds, and I was shocked at how different he looked. And because you know when you change yourself, but you don't notice it, like you notice, oh, look at it, like puffier, but you don't like
Yeah,
see it like dramatic shift. And
yeah,
one thing I notice is like when people get super like it's like when you're fat and you get leaner, you look younger until you get shredded, and then you look older.
really lean. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. You
and
just look like you're dying. Yeah.
yeah, which you pretty much are, I suppose. So you look a lot healthier now. Hopefully training is going. When did you finish up your season?
I was done in July, so it's been, I
Oh, it's
think,
been a while.
30 or 31 weeks or something like that since my last show at this point. So yeah, I'm pretty much back to normal, high food, high strength. Like I feel good, like everything's good again.
You feel like fully recovered, body fat distribution is kind of normal.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's still kind of stable. That's kind of, I don't know. I always find that like immediately after my contest seasons, I feel like I hold fat differently, and then it kind of spreads out as I hold the higher weight longer. But no, I feel good. I mean, I've even hit a couple PRs in the gym on various things in the last few weeks here. That it's yeah, I'm back pretty much
Yeah,
strength wise too.
yeah, it's
But I mean,
good to
you'd
hear.
expect that, right? If you look at the literature, it's about 4 to 6, maybe 7 months, something like that, for things to normalize after a show, assuming that you've regained weight and are eating more food and all of that. So I mean, I kept working with Cliff after my shows, so that way I didn't have to think about anything. And I mean, we pushed my weight up, and yeah, I feel good. So
Yeah, I actually spoke with Cliff on Saturday, just a couple of days ago. I forgot that you'd worked with him until I saw like a photo on you posted. I remember you saying, but good to hear that you're feeling normal again, man. I do feel the same. Takes me a bit the same amount of time to kind of feel normal. Like for a while, my body fat's very weird, and then it just spreads out normally
yeah,
and starting to feel
yeah,
good again. It's been such a long time since I competed now. I was planning to compete next year. It would be
yeah.
like I compete usually every 3 years. Like since I first started competing in 2013. Every 3 years after that. So next year would be in 3 more years. But the last year here where I live, or not even the last year, but since over a year now at this stage, I literally it's literally finished my prep in November and we went into lockdown here the following March. So basically, just as I was starting to feel like it was a very long prep for me. So basically, I think it was probably similar to yours, like in length. And as just as I was starting to feel normal and like looking forward to really training heavy again,
Yeah.
then it turned into home training. And it's kind of been on and off since I think they locked down until like July, and then they opened from March, and then they opened up from July to September, and then I think they locked down September, October, they opened December, and now it's locked down again from end of December until May. So it's and I think this, and I'm in Ireland, but I think this it's similar enough in the UK, maybe a little bit less, and also a lot of Europe as well. It's quite, I don't know what the word is, like draconian, but maybe it's necessary. Like I'm no expert, so there's no point even really chatting about that. But it's as from a gym goer, it's a real pain in the ass. So I don't know if I've really made progress sufficiently to kind of warrant going through another prep. You know yourself, it's difficult, and you want to kind of step on stage having kind of better your like,
Yeah.
even if you don't place better, you at least want to have beat your last physique. And I don't really know if I could do that, next time around.
Yeah, I mean that's why too. People always ask me, "Oh, when are you going to compete again?" Because I just competed, last year, right? And it had been 4 years before that, and it was 4 years before that.
Yeah,
When I was younger, I would go 2 years between. Like I did 04, 06, and 08, but then since 2008, it's been 4 years. It's been 08, and then 2012, 2016, 2020, and I don't know when the next time will be. At least probably 2023, 2024. I don't know. I turned 40 in 2026, right at the beginning of the year. So I for sure want to compete that year, like right when I turn 40, do some like master's classes that spring. But I don't know if I'll do one more before that or not. Who knows? I mean, it depends on how training goes the next few years and, everything else in life. And, I want to be better the next time, right? Like that, if you're going to take the time and the effort to get stage lean, like you want to be better the next time around. You don't want to, I don't
yeah.
know. I don't want to just do it to do it. I mean, I still, I'm mid 30s now. I still have enough years left. I can, progress. So like, let's make the most of this and keep getting better.
Yeah, like yeah, exactly the same. I would have been 30 next year. Well, not I would have been. I will be 30. Um, but I would have been competing at 30, so it would have been pretty cool. I mean, because when I was like 20, I was thinking 30 is like really old, um,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is really
Yeah. No,
strange
my
to think of
first
it.
film, I was 18. I
Wow.
had just been 18.
Yeah,
So that was like 17 years ago.
yeah. Mine was 21. And that was the hardest prep I'd ever done. Just because the first prep, and I got pretty lean. But yeah, I think everyone kind of, when they get very lean the first time, they realize it's pretty hard. But yeah, so like you said, well, I don't think I'm gonna progress. Like maybe I'll be able to bring the same package, but that's not like really what I want to do because it's not easy to prep. And for me as well, there's only one show in Ireland, so it costs money to go to UK, to the US. You got to pay for flights, accommodation, all that sort of stuff. So it could be looking like the year after, and that kind of leads into the topic of conversation today, and that's what do you do when you come back from lockdowns into the gym, and specifically I guess for people who are like competitors or high level like recreational bodybuilders that may not compete, because for general populations probably just get back into the gym and start eating. But I don't know what you've experienced with your clients, but what I've noticed a lot is um motivation just kind of dwindles a little bit at home, especially when you're like, even for me, I've got a decent setup. Like I've got a squat rack and a bench, and I'm lucky to have that stuff. But I still like my motivation, and I definitely know is lower to train in my living room than it is going into a gym and
Yeah.
hitting legs with a hack squat, like you said you had PR yesterday or whatever. And hack squatting, heavy deadlifting. I don't even have enough plates to do more than 20 rep deadlifts. But what are your experiences with clients at home, and like higher level athlete clients or competitive clients? How has it
Yeah.
been for them in terms of nutrition and training over the last couple of months? And like you said, I know Wisconsin is not necessarily locked down, but I know you have clients a bit further than that as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. So I guess it depends on where they're at, right? So like where I'm at, uh, everything opened in May and has been open since. So I mean, I was training in my back garage for a couple months there, um, 8, 10 weeks, something like that. But that was about it. And I actually just did a workout in my garage today. Gyms are open, but I actually, I did an upper push workout, today back in my garage because I have, I'm fortunate enough I have a good amount of stuff, and so I think a lot of it is what do you have, right? So I have, a barbell with about 600 pounds of plates. I have squat rack. I have adjustable bench. I have dumbbells, adjustable dumbbells up to like about 110. I have a plate loaded pull down row. I have a plate loaded extension curl, a preacher curl, easy bar, like, and then um, I got a dip belt, so I rig up like belt squats and things like that as well. And so yeah, I got, what I mean, I got a lot to work with. And so someone like me, and I have the space, right? That's also part of it too. It can be really hard when like you're training in your living room, right? Like I have a detached 2-car garage. And other than the fact it was like 35 degrees in my garage this morning, even with the heater on, um, I'm going to another space, right? To lift. It's not just in my, house where I'm at all day. And so I think someone in that type of situation, like, the clients of mine who have pretty elaborate home gyms or, good amount of stuff, they keep progressing. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be nice. When I was training at home, I was like, man, it'd be nice to have like a hack squat. I did like landmine hack squats, or it'd be nice to have a leg press. I'd belt squat, or I did regular squats too, and whatnot. But those are really the only things I was missing, and so I was able to keep on rolling. But someone who has very little equipment or is limited on weights, yeah, it can be really difficult. So I think to just doing what you can during the time you don't have the gym, and then I think that leads into transitioning back into the gym too. I think what you do when you get back in the gym very much should depend on what you did when the gyms were closed. Um, like I pretty much just jumped back in the gym and kept training like usual, because that's what I was doing at home. Like nothing changed other than having access to a few more machines. Somebody who was training with bands for 2 months, you got to ease back. I mean, you're going to kill yourself. You're going to have to start very low volume, moderate rep ranges, nothing crazy, and work your way back in. So for a lot of my clients who had that type of scenario as their gyms opened and things, we spent the first 6-8 weeks just like building up a work capacity again and getting them back to the point where they could recover from higher volumes and pushing harder again. But we really eased in for a lot of those clients.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's true for certainly with the people who, the less equipment you have, the harder it is. I noticed that because I had squat rack, when I went back to the gym, my leg movements, it wasn't too bad doing squats, but when I did, like, for example, a leg press, my legs were extremely sore, like just 2 sets of leg press and leg extensions. And another thing I noticed is, like, particularly with people who have less equipment, is they kind of lose a bit of fullness, like definition as well. They're basically losing a bit of size and probably
Yeah.
just atrophying a little bit. It will come back, like, in time, but what how would that then dictate, do you think, nutrition when it comes to coming back? Like, 'cause people, maybe they're a bit more inactive because they have suddenly has to start work from home. They don't have as much just daily activity. Maybe they've gained a little bit of weight, but they look like they've lost muscle. But they've been trying their best to train, because it is very hard to motivate yourself if you've got 2 dumbbells and a band and you're trying to do the split squats for 8 months in a row.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and that's exactly it. So I think, I guess a couple things. One thing is, you can hold, you do lose, some people lose some muscle, but you can hold size with not very much volume. Building muscle takes, a good amount of work, effort, volume, intensity. But there was a study that came out a few years ago where they had subjects do a third or a ninth of their normal training volume. And the group that did like a third of their normal training volume lost essentially nothing. I can't remember how long the study was. It was a period of months. But a third of normal training volume, they lost essentially nothing. A ninth of normal training volume, and they lost very little. They lost some, but not much. And so I think a lot of people will maintain a lot more than what they think they might, you know what I mean, with minimal equipment, as long as they're doing it, putting in effort. Like they may lose some, but like, you know what I mean? Like you're not going
Yeah.
to lose everything. Like you're like if you didn't train, you would lose a lot faster than even doing a portion of what your normal is. And then yeah, as you get back into the gym, as far as what to do, I usually don't recommend clients cut right away. Like I usually, it depends on the situation, but usually you're going to see that muscle regain and that muscle memory quicker, get back to where you were quicker if you're not dieting. You'll still get there if you're, you know what I mean? Like you'll still be able to see, like it's one of those rare times you can see fat loss and muscle gain at the same time to a large extent, right?
Mm.
But you know, I usually, if possible, like let's not diet till we get you back to 100%, you know, again, and then let's cut.
Yeah, it's almost very similar to come back from an injury, right? Typically when someone's like injured, if they're immobilized, they might gain a bit of body fat, and they will certainly lose some size, especially in the injured like
Mhm,
limb or whatever. But you don't
mhm,
want necessarily want to be getting them back into a cut straight away. Maybe kind
mhm.
of holding at maintenance.
Yeah. Yeah. And just let's get back to where you were as far as size and strength, and then let's worry about cutting from there. Yeah. And, you know, one thing I tried to really focus on, you know, with so many of my clients working from home, you know, really tried to emphasize like daily activity and getting up and going for walks and like just movement, you know, because there were people, I mean, there were people who I was working with, you know, where they're, you know, they started working at home, their weight started creeping up, you know, and it'd be like, okay, well, what's your activity level like? Like track your steps for a few days, and it'd be like 2, 3 thousand steps. And I would be like, that's why weight's creeping up here. Like, let's get that up to like 6 or 8, like get out and go for a walk every day. And at the, you know, just get outside, right? Like, you know, you
Yeah.
spend your entire day in your house. I'm sure there's psychological benefits to that too. You know, nothing extreme, you know, as far as amount of getting out and walking, but just like moving some, you know, to help offset some of that reduction.
Yeah, and it definitely, you definitely notice it if you're sitting a lot with just pain in your neck, your back, your hips, just from sitting. Like it's not necessarily your debt. I know it's completely way off topic. What people think it's like, oh, you need a specific chair or you need a specific desk. It's like no, you just need to move and not
Yeah.
sit in the same spot all the time. Which people seem like if when people are in the office, like they would still move, like for meetings or to grab a
Mhm.
coffee. When they're at home,
Mhm.
they move from the bedroom to the second bedroom.
Yeah.
um, that's-
Well, that's the thing, right? Like, so when you know the lockdown started happening, I was like, man, if there's one thing I actually know something about, it's working from home and like, you know, dealing with
yeah,
that,
yeah,
because you know I've done that for 5.5 years now, you know, full time, and so you know, I at least like I had the experience to be able to help them, like, you know, like, hey, like you're still going to want to meal prep like you did before. Like you're not going to be able to just cook fresh food all the time. You're still going to have food available. Like, you know, just some of those things, you know, that getting up and getting out, you know, setting, you know, getting away from your computer, you know, getting away from work. You know, like in my case, you know, I usually walk my dog twice a day. If I didn't, she'd be like jumping on me right now, during this call. But you know, I don't bring my phone with me. Unless I have someone competing that day or something like that. But most days, phone doesn't come with me when I'm out walking my dog. It's time away from my house. It's time away from work. It's, you know what I mean?
you
It's
don't listen to podcasts or music or anything like that, no?
no. I just go for a walk. Even when I'm
Yeah,
at the gym,
you must be
you
some sort
know,
of psychopath.
yeah. No, when I even at the gym, I just you know, I don't. My phone stays
Well,
like in my
yeah.
car or in my locker. Like I don't even have.
Oh, really? You don't have music in the gym?
I mean, I'll just listen to whatever and deal with it. You know, most gyms,
Yeah,
you know, depending on the gym, like some of them have
yeah,
pretty good music and some don't. I just deal with it. But yeah, I just am so much more focused and have so much more better workouts.
yeah. That's
And
true.
it's just mentally to get away from work, right? Like, you know, when you're working at home, it's always. And so,
Mm,
you know, my time at the gym or my time walking my dog is like my time away from work. You know, my phone's not with me. You know, just
yeah,
that's my time away, you know, because you got to find that balance point, or else you're going to be, if you're
sure.
working at home, it's going to be work from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed, and there's going to be no balance or anything else in life.
Mm, yeah. I remember I remember the first gym I ever joined. I was there for a couple of years. They played like the radio, so you would
Oh,
actually have like they would play talk show. There would be like a talk show on. You're trying to do like squats, and it's just because they didn't pay for like I don't know if they have to pay some sort of license to play, but they just had like a talk show, so I needed the earphones there. Um, But to come back to like when we're returning to the gym, would you recommend like avoiding any particularly damaging exercises like RDLs or flies or these things? Especially, I don't think most people would have like significant weight to do like heavy RDLs if you're say you're particularly strong. Would you recommend avoiding those things and
I
any specific exercises?
I don't know that I have anyone avoid any specific exercise. Really been just training with bands or something like that. Like the first week back in the gym, we might train 5 days, balanced, split volume wise, everything twice a week, pretty balanced, no emphasis on any muscle group, doing 5, 6 movements per workout, maybe two working sets each, 10 to 15 rep range, sub failure, no crazy high or low reps, no crazy
Yeah,
intensity techniques, just get in and do, oftentimes they'll be sore from even that, right? Like that, that's not even
yeah,
very much, maybe 50 working sets over the course of a week, right? In the 10 to 15 rep range, sub failure. And they'll be sore from that. And so usually I tell people, okay, week 2, the plan would be to bump volume up. But if you're really sore from week 1, repeat week 1 again until you're actually recovering from it better. And then let's move on to week 2 and try to add a little more volume. And if you're really sore from that, like, let's stay there. You know what I mean? Like, so it's almost like individual, you know what I mean? Like how are you
yeah,
recovering, and so, and obviously if someone has, the more someone has, the less of that, the less you have to back off like that when you
yeah,
first
yeah.
get back in.
It sounds similar to like the way that Mike Israetel would increase the volume week to week with the
Yeah, I
soreness.
mean, that's kind of that's kind of, I don't know, I don't program like that
Yeah,
often,
I know what
but
you
like
mean.
I say that like that's my default way to program, but I think coming back into the gym, it's a really good. Like I think that that's a really smart thing to be doing rather than just blasting yourself right away.
Yeah,
Because I mean, I think of like the leg day I did yesterday. Like if I hadn't been regularly training, like I would have just absolutely, like I wouldn't have been able to walk today, like, but I'm okay. I'm a little sore, but not anything crazy.
yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Like coming back from the gym, it's like when you're at very low volume, you probably want to try walk it up. It's not like you're going back in with
Yeah.
normal volume, then dictating your volume off soreness. Um,
No.
what about then for like competitors? So I know a lot. Maybe it's not affected so many people in the US, but in the UK and Ireland and maybe Europe, I'm not that sure about the rest of Europe, but a lot of the shows, for example, like spring shows are gone. Like they're just completely gone. So the rest of the shows are like October, September time, and maybe a little
Yeah.
bit later than that. For those who've been training at home and like a lot of people would have kind of maybe started reading prepping at this stage, like is there anything different for them sort of people? Like I know like some people may be holding off and say like, okay, I'll start the prep when I get back to the gym because I want to give make sure that I'm not in a deficit at home, so I'm not losing muscle. But then like if the gym doesn't open at a certain date, then you're really struggling to get in shape on time. What's your kind of overall thoughts on that in terms of setting up prep in a less than ideal scenario?
Yeah. So well, first off, I think the stage is always going to be there. So if something, you didn't want to start prepping until you were in the gym this year, like you could compete next year. And I think a lot of it is based on, one, what do you have available? And like, I using myself as an example, like last year when, last March, the world shut down like 6 days out from my show. And so I ended up like, I had to make the decision, do I keep going or not? Well, I had been dieting for almost I'd been dieting like 10 months. There were some diet breaks in there and stuff, but like I'd been dieting like 10 months and I was essentially stage lean. And I knew that I hadn't competed for 4 years and wasn't going to for another at least 3, 4 more. So I was like, all right, I'll just give it a couple months, and once shows start again, I'll do them. And I had the equipment, fortunately, here, with
Yeah.
plenty to train, that um, it was fine, right? So like in my case, it was fine, and yeah, it looked the best I ever did on stage. I think if you were much earlier in the prep process, like say you started prep in February and the world shut down in March, then you essentially just did a mini cut. You could, get out of that and whatever, right? Compete at a later time. Um, it also depends what you have at home. I have a couple clients right now who are in Europe that are dieting for shows without gyms, but they have. I mean, one of my clients has. I mean, man, he has like a full gym,
Yeah.
that he has it at home, right? And so, like with him, it's business as usual, right? Like, I mean, he has like leg press and like a squat machine and like, barbells and squat rack and dumbbells. I think his dumbbells go up to like 150, or what did he say? Go up to 50 kilos or something like that.
Yeah.
Like you're
120 pounds.
might even be higher than that, 70 kilos. It's about 150 pounds, so 70
Yeah. Yeah.
kilos. But yeah, yeah. So I mean, like someone like that, he has so much available that like it really hasn't mattered when gyms have opened or closed in this country because he
He probably
has so.
trains there all the time anyway, though, right?
Yeah, he usually goes to the gym. I
Okay.
believe. I mean, usually we're programming training for the gym. Um, I think he does some workouts at home or whatever and modifies what he has to. But I mean, like I said, it depends, right? Like, what do you have available? If you're training with just bands, yeah, you're probably going to want to get back to the gym, get back to 100%, and then kind of see from there, like, what does my timeline look like? But if you're training at home, doesn't look a whole lot different than the gym. Um, then you just keep on dieting. It just really
Yeah.
depends on what do you have available. Like, what's your
Do you,
situation?
do you think if you had like a suboptimal situation that there would be like, obviously you would have to diet, like if the show was coming closer you couldn't just keep leaving it off, but do you think there
Mm.
would be a like a period of weeks out where you would say, okay, we kind of have to call it a day here? Like, I mean, let's say you're training with bands and you're dieting down and the gym's open
Yeah,
a week out and you've trained with bands, you're not really going to look the best on stage.
yeah,
But if
yeah,
that was like 6 months out, right, it may not affect you that
yeah,
much. Do you think
yeah.
there's like a period where you think you would recommend somebody like would call it, because I'd say you don't really want to get like too lean to the point where you have to basically recover, but you never got to
Yeah,
step on stage as well, right?
yeah. Yeah, well, and that was part of the reason why I just kept going because exactly. By the time I recovered and dieted down again, I'm not getting stage lean for a few more years. Like that's not happening. So I'm glad in
Yeah.
hindsight, I made the right decision for me. But um, yeah, no. So that's such a tough call, right? It comes down to the person, because and it comes down to like their motivation to train at home and keep training too, because um, yeah, I think it's really a tough decision and really just what I mean. I don't know if it's a one size fits all by any means.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just like a year ago when things were starting to shut down, and people were making the decisions whether or not like do I keep going with my prep or not. Similar type of thing. Um, in this situation, right? Do I start my prep or not? Do I, when, and like I said, I feel like it's easier if you haven't started your prep yet to just push it back. Like,
Yeah.
just push it back to next year. Where it becomes an issue is like, hey, I've started prep and now my gym closed, and now what do I do? What do I have available? How close to stage lean am I? Like that's where I think you have to make some more difficult decisions.
Yeah. I think, yeah, I think like last year I know that in the UK, I don't know if you experienced the same, but there wasn't as many competitors that competed because like not everybody had the best. I kind of called it from the start. Like not everybody, even the best bodybuilders, not all of them had like access to home gyms, like good
Mhm.
quality, and even those who did try get them, they might have been sold out, or
Mhm.
it's,
Yeah.
if you really want to make the most of a prep, you kind of need more than just a barbell. So
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
a lot of people didn't show up. The actual show that I'd won 2 years ago, it didn't even take place because they couldn't get people. The gyms only opened in July and the show was September, so I mean you weren't going to get people registering for it. So that actually got cancelled. Did you notice the same thing in the shows that you competed?
I would say yes and no. So I think there were probably less overall number of like if you had all the people up who
Yeah,
dieted down and got on stage the second half of the year last year, it was probably less than normal, but there were also less shows.
yeah,
Um, so it really depended on where the show was. You know what I mean? Like, and what other shows were there, and kind of what the restrictions were and when gyms opened and stuff. Because, I was at shows. I was at shows where maybe it was like a third of the size of the year before, and then I was at shows where I mean there were twice as many competitors as the year before because it was like the show, right? So like I did a show, I did an untested NPC show down in Missouri when it was in July, and it was the first NPC show in like any of that state or any of the bordering states. Like all the other. That show was huge. It was one of the first NPC shows, period, like national qualifying NPC shows, period, here in the U.S. It was huge. It was the biggest show they had. I think it was almost double the size of the year before, and that was the biggest show they had ever had. Like, I mean, people flew in for it because it was, you know what I mean? There was so
it's
few options.
like a COVID
And
super spreader.
yeah, well, yeah, and in Missouri there was no restrictions. That
Yeah,
show was basically as normal. But and so so it depended on where you're at, right? So like some were really small, some were super big. I was at another one last fall with a few clients where it was about 1.5 times the size as it was the year before, just because it
yeah,
was, you know what I mean? There were just fewer shows in that area, and it was one of the very few. And so, you know what I mean? I think it was a lot of just where things were, what the politics were, what other shows were options, things like that. Some were smaller, some were bigger, some were the same size. But yeah, there were less number of shows, and so there were less
yeah.
competitors, but there were also less shows. So it
They were
really,
just as busy almost a lot of
it
the
really
US is so
depends.
big. Yeah, that the US is so big, and bodybuilding is so much bigger there than it is like in Europe. So like there's kind of more options for us over here. There's really you've really kind of got two organizations in the UK. You've only got one in Ireland, so like you don't really have much options. I think in the UK they cancelled all the qualifiers and everybody just got to go to the finals. Um, but the problem was like the gyms were kind of closed. So like
Uh,
if the gyms are going to be closing, people aren't going to be dieting necessarily for shows, and they state by state in the US they make the
well,
restrictions, but
and
the
it was,
UK is just the
yeah,
UK. So, yeah,
and it was crazy. One thing I will say is that some of the early shows, like when things first opened, I wasn't sure what to expect. I did some of those early shows.
yeah,
I was shocked, like how high the quality of competitor was at those early shows, because I think part of it was because, I mean, you probably have some of the people who are really taking it seriously, and you know what I mean, like that are pushing through like the lockdown and whatnot. Um, yeah, I mean, there was just some, you know what I mean, like really, really high quality competitors at some of those early shows, and I think part of it too is people would fly in from other parts of the country because hey, there's a show in this area and it started, there's shows starting here again and there's none in my area.
yeah.
Yeah, there was, the quality was really, really, like, you know what I mean, like it, at first, like I said, I was really shocked at some of those like late June and like July shows. Like there weren't very many shows, like that's when they were first starting again, but there was definitely like I thought, I thought the same thing, like, oh, it's going to be like, whatever, it's all these people have been training at home. I was shocked. Like the numbers may have been down at some of them, but the quality was high.
Yeah, I don't think the people who would train at home would step on stage. That's the thing, because you would just going through all of that, and you probably couldn't bring in unless you had like the equipment like you had or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, how long have you seen then? Like, and this is definitely going to be individual, but what's your thoughts on like how long people usually take to kind of regain or see their 100% come back after like let's say a significant period of
Uh,
training at home that looks different, let's say, than the gym?
yeah. No, I think what it depends on what someone has available. You know, it's hard to it's hard to say for sure, but like, when someone's injured, my general rule of thumb is like, so if you're coming back off an injury, so that would be not training at all. And say it's been like 4 months of not training a body part at all. Usually within about half that amount of time of being able to train it again, you're back to where you were. So you injure your knee or something, and you can't really train quads for 4 months, and your legs shrink or whatever. Then once you can really train them hard again, within a couple, usually about within 2 months or last year, pretty close, with it, you're at least 90-95% of where you were before. It comes back really fast. um, it might even be quicker than, like, if you've been training at home for 10 months, I don't think it's going to take 5 months to get back to where you were
Yeah.
if you've been doing stuff right. Like, this isn't, it's similar to coming back off an injury, but at the same time it's not, because you're still training. So it's not like you're doing nothing. And so, yeah, I would think for most people within the first couple months, they're back, to where they were. They usually come back pretty quick, assuming they've been doing stuff at home.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely makes sense. If you've been doing something and you versus you haven't, or if you've been doing like bands, like you said, it's probably going to take you a bit longer, but it
It is,
eventually
but
will. But
it's still going to be fast. I would still think if you've been doing bands at home, it's still going to, you haven't lost as much as if you're doing nothing,
yeah,
and so it's still going to come back quicker than having, if you did nothing for 10 months, then it might take a while. But like, if you've been training with bands or light weights or whatever and doing what you can, that probably come back within a couple months.
yeah, and that's the thing people gotta remember that hopefully we're not going to have any more lockdowns in the future. Who knows? But hopefully not. But one final question for you, Peter, is on you touched a little bit about activity. And when I was speaking to Cliff, he mentioned that he doesn't really like to use activity with
Yeah.
clients, and I haven't really spoke to any other coaches because like energy flux and stuff. I always thought that some activity is better
Yeah.
than nothing. But Cliff kind of likes to use little to no cardio. So
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on cardio for not for health but for say prepping?
Yeah, for prep. So yeah, so that's one place Cliff and I differ a little bit, but I don't think we're as far off as what you'd think. So I don't have I the medium and high intensity cardio. That's kind of like my last case scenario. Like, hey, we're running out of other places we can go. We got to add some of that in. So in that sense, I'm much similar to him. But I do have clients track steps. Um, but I think it's important that it isn't taken to extremes. So I think people have like, you should care. Like, I think you should care about it. Like, if you're getting 2,000 steps a day, your prep's probably not going to be as optimal as it could be if you were getting like 6 or 8,000. So that means, yeah, you have to go do some lists or whatever you want to call it, to go walk around more, move more during the day. But I don't think you should take it too far. I don't think any, unless their lifestyle is that way, I don't think any of my clients should be doing 15, 20,000 steps a day. Like, that's not something I would say, hey, you're doing like 10,000 steps a day, now go do like 15 or 20,000. No. I think if you take it too far, it's not going to help. It's only going to make things worse. I think, like most things, moderation, right? I think the two biggest reasons that I would care about tracking steps, one is so that you don't do so little that you're not moving. And two is so that during prep, your activity doesn't just drop off like it would when you feel tired and sluggish, so that you make yourself keep moving. But yeah, I don't think that really, really high step counts are the answer. Like, I've seen people say they're doing like 17,000 steps a day or something like that. Like, I would never tell a client to do that. Like, that's way more, you know what I mean? Like, unless they're working a physical job where that just kind of naturally happens. that's not something I wouldn't say, oh, you work a desk job and get 6,000 steps a day. Let's do 17,000. Like we would never get up that high. Like there's a limit, and then you get diminished.
Obviously you would have to make the adjustments through diet, right? Do,
Yeah.
do you find that it gets significantly harder then for them, like if they're dealing with hunger and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, well, I just actually made a post on this on social media yesterday on movement and appetite regulation, and so there is some evidence that if you have like a moderate activity level, like it helps,
Yeah.
hunger in check and has like effects on appetite regulation. But if you're super active, like if you're doing that 20,000 steps a day, like your hunger is going to go up to match that. But on the other side, there's evidence that like if you don't move and you're getting
Yeah.
the
It's like a J-shaped curve, right?
yeah, the J-shaped curve. You start if you're only getting like 2,000 steps a day, you might be more hungry. And so, there may be benefits to just, and I'm not even saying go crazy, 6, 8, 10,000, something not crazy, more than nothing, but not 15, 20,000, like,
Yeah. So would you be seeing people getting the calories below, like at some points below 10 grams, 10 calories per pound?
oh yeah, yeah. Even if you're definitely, there are people that have to go below that.
Yeah. No, I've personally done that, but do you find that it's commonplace? Because when you're keeping steps, if someone's really inactive and they get less than 10 in a prep at the end of a prep, I
Yeah.
can imagine some people who don't, well, not even someone who doesn't lose fat easy, but a lot of people have to get quite below that, right? And it's not
Yeah.
much food.
Yeah, yeah, and so I mean, it's not much food, and so I mean, if you can move a little bit more, because I've prepped people where we cared about steps and where we didn't, and they usually get away with a little bit more food caring about it, and that caring about it means, for some of these people, like, hey, my usual day is 7, 8,000, and maybe at the end of prep I'm doing 10, like, um and maybe not in the comparing that prep to like a prep where it was like, hey, I just moved less as I got more tired. And
Yeah.
I don't know, I find that the outcomes a little bit, is better if you can use it as a tool to help someone who, what I mean, may get like no activity move a little bit or prevent that decline that happens during prep. But I definitely, like I said, I don't think 15, 20,000 just going crazy with steps to keep food high, like I don't think that's a good approach. And so, I agree with Cliff on that. You know what I mean? Like, so I
Yeah.
don't think he and I are that far different. You know what I mean on this? Because we've talked about this before. Like, he'll tell you the same thing. Like, he thinks people should keep living life during prep, and keep doing what they would normally do, right? Not just turn into a slug. And I mean, you know, that's really the biggest thing here, right? Is you don't want to be at either extreme. You just want to have some movement, throughout the
Yeah.
day.
Yeah. That's a good viewpoint. Um, well, it's been really good to have you back on, man.
Yeah.
Where can
Yeah.
people find more about you?
Yeah, so you can find me on social media. So I'm on Instagram at Fit Body Physique. I'm on Facebook as myself. And my website is fitbodyphysique.com, and that's currently being redone. So hopefully within the next few weeks, the new site should be up. It's pretty close. So I'm pretty excited about that. My old site's like from 2014, so it's definitely
Do,
needed a
do you put blogs and
revamp.
stuff like that on it, or do you write?
So yeah, it's like I have all the links to, like, I'll link this on there. So all like the podcasts I've been interviewed on, any of the articles I've written, our book, um, client pictures, testimonials, like a contact me, all that stuff will be on there. So it's not gonna, content wise, it's gonna be similar to what I have now, probably in, as terms of what's on the website, but it's just gonna be cleaner and newer and look better than,
Yeah.
my website right now looks like what websites looked like in 2014. And so, yeah, this is gonna look a little more like 2021. So
Yeah, websites are a disaster. I spent like weeks and months trying to learn how to do WordPress and stuff like that.
yeah, fortunately, I have a client who does web page design for a living.
Nice.
So yeah, I have a nice in. So we have a good working relationship.
Nice. And any plans to kind of publish anything, any reviews or anything like that in the near future?
No, I got a few talks scheduled for this year, assuming all goes well. Some are virtual, some are in person. So definitely some talks coming up. But no, our book was a lot of work. I don't know how Cliff's writing another book after that. Like I needed like
Not books, but like papers.
papers. Not at the moment. I've done some consulting on a couple like grad research projects. I don't know if either of those anything from that will get published, but no, not a ton. I've been more so on the coaching end of things. I don't know, I really enjoy coaching, so
Yeah.
um
Does,
yeah,
does it, does it
I have a
get
lot
like
of clients.
does it
I have
get
a lot
like
of
stressful trying to like pub? I mean, is there the cons outweigh the pros for trying to when you're trying to publish unless you're part of a faculty and you kind of have to publish?
Yeah, I mean, I still enjoy like science though. I mean, I got a PhD and went to school for
Yeah,
a decade. I've done a lot of this, but so yeah, I still enjoy the process. I still enjoy the science, reading literature, all of that. But yeah, it's a lot of time, and so like I said, coaching, it's been a lot of fun, and I have a lot of clients, since there weren't really, a lot of people's 2020 didn't turn out as planned. So like 2021, there's a lot of people shooting for shows. You know, I have a few this spring, but really like you said there too. Here in the U.S. there are spring shows and there's shows that have happened already this year. But um, a lot of my clients are shooting for more like summer fall, type shows. There are a lot of people, who started prep early this year for summer fall, and um, yeah, I don't know. I'm excited to have a whole new group of people to get on stage this year.
yeah. All the best with them as well. Hopefully it goes well. I know you bring your clients in really good shape. One last question. And we never even brought up that you had like a PhD, but I just assumed people knew who you were. So you're not just a coach, but you're like a published scientist. Um, but where can I learn more about statistics and how to how to be proficient at statistics?
And I don't know. That's a really hard one. I don't know if I have a good resource. Because I had a professor. I had a couple, actually multiple professors during my PhD. Told me, they said, class in grad school. A lot of the classes you take, you could learn that stuff on your own when it comes to like nutrition, exercise, science.
Yeah,
Like you could learn it on your own. But this classes you really need are statistics. Like,
yeah,
like I had multiple professors, tell me that during grad school, like the classes that you really need to go to class and like you need to learn is, statistics. Like yeah, I don't know if I have a great resource other than like
go to
class.
class.
You know what I mean? Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean
well, fortunately,
that's
I went to all the classes. um,
yeah.
But yeah, no, I think I agree with you. I think like I remember before my current masters, I was doing one in it was diet and health, and they would just do the slides, give you the slides, and they actually it was because it was online. They would give you the slides and then say, here's your like here's your assignment. It's due in 12 weeks," and you would have to just go and read. It's like there's literally like no teaching in some of
Oh
those things. But
yeah,
yeah,
no, yeah, I took 14 credits of grad level stats during my PhD. So I had three different classes. One was 5 credits and two were 4 credits. They were ungodly time consuming. Some of the like hardest, worst class. I don't know. I was always really good at stat. Like it always made sense and came easy to me. I was always someone that was good at thinking through processes and not really memorizing. So like memorize like on my grad, like my GPA in like grad school was better than it was in undergrad, because in undergrad it was a lot more memorization and spitting
yeah,
things back. And I'm not that great at memorizing stuff, but like the thinking through processes and having to like, you know what I mean, like work through things. I don't know that I've always been better at that.
yeah. So I guess I just have to go to class more or revise a bit more.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I have a good resource for stat. I'm sure there's some out there. I mean, there has to be. Like there's got to be like the equivalent of like, like mass research review
Yeah,
is,
yeah.
like the like
Statistics
resource.
research review. Just lots
Yeah,
of
there's got
really
to be
nerdy
some sort of
maths
like
people.
Yeah, there's got to be some math people that have some sort of statistic equivalent, or if there isn't, then if there's any math people listening, they should probably create
Yeah.
the statistical equivalent of that. But
I don't know if it's something I'd be really looking forward to every month, but but anyway, Peter, it's great to have you on, and I hope to chat to you soon, man.
yeah, thanks for having me.